Welcome to Mastering Agility. If you want to listen to authentic conversations with the most inspiring guests, find like-minded people in the Mastering Agility Discord community, or both online and face-to-face events, this is the platform for you. Grab a drink, sit back, and join professional Scrum trainers Sander Dorr, Jim Sammons, and their guests in an all-new episode.
Welcome to the Mastering Agility ScanAgile edition. In today's episode, we're diving deep into the art of leadership with the incredible Tricia Broderick. With years of experience shaping high-performing teams, Tricia knows exactly what it takes to foster collaboration, navigate challenges, and inspire true agility.
We'll explore the nuances of leadership, the power of trust, and how to create environments where teams thrive. Get ready for an insightful conversation packed with real-world wisdom and actionable takeaways. Let's get started.
Tricia Broderick, welcome back. You're the first guest that we've ever had that is here for the third time.
I feel very honored.
Oh, and now we're even.
And
here.
I also now have to question your
Our judgment.
The other range of guests.
I also have questions now, but I'm extremely honored.
And we are honored because this is also the first time that we're actually doing something together on location, Jim and I. We've done one recording together at his house, but not in this context.
Nice.
Yeah. Yes.
So I'm just hitting all these
You're ticking all the boxes now. Yeah.
Well, and you gave us one of the best compliments last time you were on, which was it felt super easy, energetic, and all that stuff. And I think that's what we respond to. Like, it's so much different when you're in person to like just read nonverbals and to not interrupt. We were talking about that earlier. So yeah, I think it's going to be a great couple days of recording here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we're live at the ScanAgile Conference. The conference just kicked off. You're doing the keynote at the end of the day.
I am. That means I got to keep it together all day long.
Gotta keep the energy going.
It's still early.
It's still early. I'm like, the hotel is right next door. Do I go take a nap? These are the thoughts going through my head.
But you're talking about building resilience.
I am.
In what sense?
So Diana Larson and I co-wrote Lead Without Blame, and the subtitle of it is Building Resilient Learning Teams. And I kind of, in some ways, a little bit now, I'm like really leaning in more and more to the resilient learning elements of our book, even more so, not because I think I mentioned this the last time. I don't think anybody walks around going, who can I blame today? Like, I know that there are people, don't say anybody's name right now, but I genuinely try to believe that most people are not doing that, especially as leaders. That said, we have to be intentional about building our resilience. Like, now more than ever, it just feels like it's a what's next kind of environment and what's going to happen. And I lied to myself and said, I'm an agilist. I'm resilient. I love to learn. And I was full of it. And so really this keynote's kind of evolved into what really scary is in my head, and what lies was I kind of telling myself, and what really should I have been focusing in on to continue kind of moving forward, taking that next step, doing the thing that's necessary to explore or figure out how to proceed forward, and what that looks like.
What does it look like?
Well, it varies. Like, I wish I could say that here's the checklist. Wouldn't everything in life be better if it was just a checklist?
Totally.
I mean,
I'd forget a lot less.
Oh, it'd be wonderful. I would get my daily check marks. It would make my heart happy. But it's not that simple because of the complexity and different things. And so what I focus in on here is, in this particular one, is looking at it from a perspective of what are 4 different aspects that you really have to be intentional about spending some time with, whether that's compassion, that's embracing complexity, that's being courageous, and or building confidence, and what are some tips associated to each one of those 4 elements. But it isn't necessarily like, here's your checklist of things that you can do. So it depends, but I try and give a lot of different tips and techniques centered around those 4 elements.
Now, Jim, you're working with a lot of management leadership as well. Do you see like these elements is there a necessity in those kind of environments as well to be more resilient?
Oh, I think so. A lot of people, not just management or leadership, just, they only have so much appetite for change. And a long time ago, one of the first Agile coaches I ever worked with asked me to read Who Moved My Cheese. And basically to set the tone, like, you'd be a hypocrite if you got into this line of business and weren't okay with change. And I think I'm curious kind of how you're defining resilience, first of all. But I do think a lot of my clients, all of them, all the people I talk to, work with, students, clients, whatever, they want to learn, but they have limited cognitive load left for learning, right? And then just when you learn one thing, it exposes you like, okay, now I know a little bit about this thing, but now to know how to do this, I got to learn these other 6 things. And that can be really overwhelming for people.
Yeah. I cannot give credit to the specifics. Or I heard a speaker say this, and I can't even remember which conference. It tends to start to be a melting pot of different things. But she said, everybody loves change that they initiate, right? Like it's, you can handle change when you're the one driving the change. And it's different when you're the one experiencing the change, no matter what that change is, and along those lines. And so one of those elements for me is thinking about what the changes are and what you're trying to accomplish with the change, because there's so many times that even when you do a change, it actually gets worse, doesn't get better, right? And so then that's a mind mess with you on top of it. You're like, wait, you told me to change this and now it's worse, but you got to work through that part. And so I'll sometimes say, I get away from the word change. I'll be like, tweak. Somehow tweak is less scary to me. I don't know. It's scary in my head. It's scary.
Yeah, but that's the thing that we've been discussing this a million times as well. Change is something that's been mentioned so often that people feels like everything around them changes, and it's like the rug is being swept underneath them. But if you emphasize that things are going to stay the exact same, like to provide the sense of continuity, then it's a lot easier to actually make those tweaks and changes, et cetera, et cetera. And I read this quote yesterday, and that resonates with what you're saying now. And it was something along the lines of, if you want to feel better, blame others. If you want to be better, blame yourself. And that is something that
I can't get behind either part of that, considering I wrote a book called Lead Without Blame, but well, I like it in concept. And
so it depends.
It depends.
Ding, 25 cents. I'm starting the timer for the conference.
So, it's true. Like there's a lot of changes for thee and not for me. That's one of the things that recurs in many organizations. Like, I want you to change, and I want to stay very comfortable and not do anything else to change. So then, how do you do that? Build that resilience that we can change, and we're resilient enough to say, "I fucked up."
Well, and I think there is an element. Yes, change is hard in general, but the reality is we change all the time. We already do it. Like it's a day. Like there's always change. We can't predict weather more than an hour in advance right now. We can't. There's all sorts of things in everybody's life every single day that is change. And so I think sometimes it's a matter of how we're positioning it, how we're handling it. But in a lot of cases, resilience for me is about when it truly does feel like that setback. Do you let it completely break you, or do you figure out what your next step is in handling it? Because there are some changes that we're so accustomed now that we don't even think of it as a change anymore. And we don't even notice it as a change. We just expect it, right? Or of course that happens. And so how do we keep building in an environment where that, yes, of course there's a fire tornado. Didn't know that was a thing, but of course I'm going to figure it out, right? Yeah. And so that's how I kind of define resilience is being able to respond to those changes in ways that don't freeze you, right? And even if you have a moment, we're human, we're allowed that moment, but in a sense of like, okay, what am I going to do now? How am I going to move forward? And what's going to happen with that? And to be able to do that, not just individually, but collectively together as a team is powerful, especially in this complexity that we're facing, chaos that we're facing in this world.
Right. And yeah, I think a lot of people just are like, oh, change is normal. I love change. But then they just want to keep doing the same things they're always doing. And it almost feels like in the face of change, I'm going to keep following the same process I've always followed or whatever. And is that part of the book about resilience in like, you got to learn new things, you got to do new things or what?
I think I'll counter that slightly, because one of the things I always highlight to people is like, when you graduated college, what was your specialization?
I didn't graduate college.
Perfect. That's even better.
Psychology is what I went to school for. Yes.
Right. And we all evolve in our careers. Are you doing the same thing you were doing in your career at the start?
No, not even close.
We've already. So there is an element of, I actually think the hesitation sometimes to change isn't about the change or wanting to be in your comfort zone. It's that you have formed some kind of specialization that is giving you a comfort in feeling confident that you can deliver, that you can be successful. We all want to be successful. And so we hold on to what we feel is going to increase our odds of being successful because that's our goal, right? Like that's the check mark. That's the thing that we want. And anything outside of that is what then starts to scare. So I try to focus it less on the change itself being the scary and people just being lazy or wanting to stay in their comfort zone versus going, no, people want to deliver. And it's scary to think that I might not be able to. Because if that tweak makes me go backwards, I'm now afraid, right? Like I've let somebody down. I've let myself down. I've let the company, the customers, right, down. And I don't want that. So I will try and avoid that scenario. The fear of that will become too great for me. And so a lot of the things that I'm focusing in on is like the hypocrisy of it is like, you can't be successful unless you learn. You can't be successful unless you to change and to tweak and those things. And yet our brains, they're mean. Our brains are mean and they try and like keep you in a place where it feels like, no, you already know how to do this. Anything else is scary. Stay in that lane. And how do you create that resilience to go, okay, long game, not short game.
Isn't that just basic survival brain that kicks in then?
Yeah, although they say, from what I've read and understand, I'm not an expert, do not quote me, people, on this, is when it's truly survival brain, the only thing you can learn about is purely survival versus where you want to be outside that comfort zone is just learning in general. But survival brain, I think the only thing you can really learn is specific to survival when you're in that mode. But I could be wrong about that. I'm talking totally out of context here.
She was going to say out of her ass, but I'll say it for her.
I filtered I do have a filter, people. I do have a filter.
So it is possible for you to have one. Like if she has
Why should I?
It's very small and it doesn't happen very often, but I will occasionally it happens.
So I've told him this story, but just a real brief tangent. I was teaching agility and Scrum to a bunch of people at the U.S. Air Force. And we were in a room and we were talking about something. I forget exactly what it was. And I brought up the concept of radical candor.
Okay.
And this one woman turned to her boss who was sitting at the table next to her. She goes, see, it's a thing. Like, and he's like, yeah, that's me. I'm just radically candid. And she's like, no, you're an asshole. Like Jim is not giving you permission to be an asshole. He's saying there's probably more to radical candor than what you do.
Yeah. I don't think that was the message of the book.
Right. But, your question about college is interesting. And I do I don't know if I've done this on purpose or an accident. Maybe I'm not a terrible student, but I probably have enough college credits to have a PhD now. But they've been scattered because they were, at one point in college, I enjoyed the act of learning so much. I just took what I wanted to learn and not like, I didn't check all the, like that checklist you were talking about earlier. I didn't check all the right things to please admissions or, the registrar or whatever. One thing I've just done is I learn a lot outside of work, and it's been humbling to like try and learn a skill and realize you suck at it. Like whether it's joining two pieces of wood together or turning wood or making something out of 3D printing or whatever, like I am regularly humbled by, and the fact that just because I'm good at some things does not mean I'm good at even other simple things.
I love that your brain even thought that was a possibility. Mine never goes there.
You're just good at everything?
No, I expect to be crap at everything.
Oh, well, I want to be good at things. Like
you want to deliver. You want to be successful, right?
Right.
I think that is the thing that we share across the board with it. But yeah, my imposter syndrome will kick in so fast. It's not even funny.
No, but I guess that's part of the resilience as well, that you should embrace the things that you can do really well and also be aware of the things that you're not really good at. And I think that's something that many people can still learn from.
Yeah.
Right. Then how do you put that into practice?
Well, again, you keep wanting this checklist. I got to tell you, I don't have that answer.
I'm looking for like the content behind the it depends.
Well, you want me to give away my keynote?
Maybe.
Let me frame it in a slightly more specific question, because how do you give yourself the grace to learn something, get good at something if a client's paying you for it? Like, do you find that to be a struggle? Like, it might be normal that you're not good at something. You want to be good at something. You want to deliver, but people might pay you to do that thing already. And you're like, I can't show them I'm learning because it might harm my credibility or my reputation. Is that a thing?
So maybe it should be. Now you're in my head with that. But no, I think I come at my work from a place of learning is work. That is what you are paying me for. You are paying me to help you learn, help myself learn, help you learn, because knowledge work, we don't know the answers up front. We have to discover value, discover things. So I think I've always come at it from a place of you are paying me to help you embrace learning, to help you, which means I have to role model that myself in that regard. So I don't think I've ever had a thought on that. Now I probably will. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
But I do think that there is a part of my job is to stop this concept of we only do learnings once a quarter at a hackathon. Like, no, learning is happening every single day and every meeting. Like learning is the work and is not something separate. But that doesn't mean learning's easy. It doesn't mean it's done the same way by different people. It doesn't mean that environments are always set up to embrace learning with those things. And that's where a lot of the pressure could come in, is like, well, if you have to hit this deadline. And I was like, well, let's get real honest about this. I have a long career, 25 years. And without some change requests, I've missed lots of deadlines that were never really realistic to begin with. And guess what never happened? The world didn't stop, right?
And you didn't die. The world didn't end.
The world didn't end. And I'm not saying please go out and try and miss every one of your deadlines. That's not a good, successful approach to your career. But on the same note, a lot of times our deadlines are made up things to begin with to create a sense of urgency or to do different things. And so again, I go back to what are we really trying to learn and what are we really trying to do to be successful? Is it the deadline? Because my name is Tricia Broderick. I've built lots of stuff that's never been used, but it hit a deadline.
Sure.
Versus was my job and my responsibility to help you deliver something of value and help us learn to that. So I am on a mission of breaking down that whole learning something you don't have time for. I would argue you don't have time not to learn.
Right.
Same with the deadlines. The whole word deadline is a dumb word to begin with. Like, who's going to die? Unless you're working on pacemakers, then sure. But ultimately, who's going to die if you don't make it? Is the world going to be on fire? Probably not. You got to change again. Both Jim and I are experienced consultants and trainers. Therefore, we know how important it is for organizations to have the fundamentals in place before delivering high-value products. And this starts with understanding the theory behind whatever framework, method, or process organizations apply. And this is where Xebia comes in. Xebia is a pioneering software engineering and IT consultancy company, transforming and executing at the intersection of domain and technology to create digital leaders for our people, clients, partners, and communities. As a gift for our Mastering Agility audience, they provided us with a discount code MA10 when signing up for their open enrollment classes to get 10% off. Go to xebia.com/academy to find the entire curriculum of courses. That is Xebia, xebia.com/academy to find all their courses.
There's an article I was reading recently about why deadline and deadline-driven things are such prevalent in the industry, and there's some really incorrect assumptions baked into it. Which is if we don't give the team a deadline, they won't focus. If we give a team an aggressive deadline, it'll create urgency, and that urgency will create creativity and all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, all those are assumptions at best. But I was asked point blank yesterday after the speaker's dinner, Is deadline-driven work anti-agile?
No.
Okay.
No, I mean, look, if you got an April Fool's joke that you want to release on April 1st, the data is an important element, right? Like it's not very funny on April 2nd. I mean, I guess it could be, but not probably. So no, I'm not anti-deadline, but something has to be flexible if it is knowledge work, with those elements and what that flexibility is, whether it's scope or it's people or it is the date. It's getting away from the task-based world and kind of embracing the knowledge work of the situation and the reality of discovering value in knowledge work. So I'm not in the camp of there should be no deadlines. There is an interesting book that it would be curious to try and blend that work together by Daniel Pink called When, because I do think, like, if I remember some of his work correctly, there is some elements to dates in general and when people start like taking their effort to the next level and things like that. So I don't know if all of those assumptions are completely like just picked out of nowhere, probably in the original, but there might be actually some benefit. I do think constraints in general can create some of those challenges and benefits. But it's when everything is fixed. It's when everything is
right.
Is set and locked, and then you're just supposed to go poof, magically make it happen, then that's a problem.
Yeah, like it's the confluence of requirements, fixed scope, fixed deadline that I think kills agility.
I think that, the iron triangle.
Right.
Yeah.
So back to the idea of resilient learning. So there's a lot of developer-minded people here. A lot of the talks at this conference are technical in nature. So we have some abilities to maybe ask some people today I think developers, software developers, hardware developers, whatever, product designers, developers, they're very creative. They're constantly learning. But what I've heard just in the last couple of months from many of them is they don't like to admit that they don't know something. I have a team that's mostly staffed with full stack developers, and some of them have been on the team for a month. Some of them have been there for 5 or 8 years, and they brought in some outside people to teach test-driven development and more modern testing and coding practices. And a few of them admitted to me, like, I need to learn this, but they don't feel comfortable telling their peers or maybe their boss, this is all new to me, because they were hired as a senior, blah, 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 full stack this. And it feels scary to admit you don't know something.
You think that's a new thing?
No, it's not new. It's new that this group of people was admitting it to me.
Yeah, I think that's always been present.
Right. So if we agree it's not new, because I've seen it my whole career, how do we use resilience to make it easier, better? I don't know.
Well, I think some of that comes into play in terms of it is a scary world right now, right? I think maybe some of the admitting and some of that fear comes in is there are constant layoffs right now. There are constant upheavals right now. There's security and stability doesn't feel great in general. And if I'm paying my bills and I have a choice between admitting I don't know something or spending all night figuring it out and then pretending the next day, if I think it's going to cost me my job. So I think there's a lot of what's happening in organizational cultures that will drive whether or not somebody is comfortable with admitting it or with being vulnerable or being transparent in those regards. Because if, the company's doing layoffs every quarter or so, my willingness to speak up is even less, right? Along those lines. And I do think, I remember seeing a lot of that in the .com early 2000s. I'm aging myself now. And I was lucky in that I was always billable during that time, but it was like, who's going to be on the bench? And did you want to be on the bench? Nope. Then say you can do that work, no matter if you can do it or not, because nobody wanted to be on the bench at the end of that quarter, or you're going to be laid off. It had nothing to do with skill. It had nothing to do with anything at that point, but whatever was the layoffs. So I think in a lot of cases, don't think this generation is any more arrogant or unwilling to admit something with it. I think that we're in a time right now that is scary for a lot of people, and that risk and that vulnerability is not something that is praised, is supported, is encouraged, is rewarded.
Well, until you just said it, I didn't think about this, but the state of the industry and the hiring market really does probably have a real impact for some of the
100%.
engineer-minded people, because I was old enough to remember the dot-com bubble, and there was a shared sense of camaraderie there because most people were figuring it out together, right? Most of the time, there was not 10 experts and one newbie in the room. It was the opposite. And over my career, when it was a employees market, it might have felt a lot more comfortable to say, yeah, I don't know that thing, because they knew, well, like if somebody hears that and my contract gets ended, I can go get one tomorrow. But now it is kind of creating a little bit of this very protective scarcity bias type things and loss aversion. I got a job, so I got to do anything to keep it. And admitting I don't know something could make me lose the thing I have.
Put me at risk.
Yeah. That's
my son is in college right now for a philosophy and computer science degree, and imagine that combo. I'm pretty much sure I'm going to make him learn COBOL.
Well, there's a lot of money to make in that.
100%. I am highly recruitable right now as a former COBOL developer.
Banks would love to hire you. They probably got a lot of jobs.
I'm already like thinking through like, okay, you're going to learn COBOL. I don't care if there's no class for it at school.
But isn't that part of the hiring process as well, where I don't think there's sufficient companies that are hiring for character, but purely based on what kind of skills do you have on paper?
I know, that just presses me.
Right? Shouldn't you look for like, what is a resilient type of person and adaptable?
Of course, because guess what? Like I just joked, like COBOL skills went out of fashion for a while. Or the skill part, you're always developing, you're always changing, you're always going. I'm tired of hearing the comments of like, that's just so and so. No, that's an asshole. Like and see, I unfiltered for
you
that.
Did. Yes. You got her to swear on the podcast.
I love it. But
Trish in her natural habitat.
That's right.
Oh, it's bad. See, and now I'm going to swear on stage. I'm going to blame you 100%.
Do it.
Now the filter's off.
That just sets the precedent
for you
tomorrow.
Wait until the wine starts flowing at dinner tonight. It'll be even better. Hot mic.
I forgot what I was saying. I don't
know. Sorry. He did it, not me.
He did it. It was all you.
We talked about the hiring process.
Yeah, I still don't know.
Yeah. What do you think the relationship, if any, of the phrase "fake it till you make it" has with resilience?
So I have. I mentioned this earlier. People are shocked to hear me when I say that I have imposter syndrome. I don't know how to quite feel about that, because I don't know if that means I come off as an arrogant ass, or if because I'm on stage and they assume, or things like that. But I basically spent the first part of my career leaning into my imposter syndrome, because in my head, I was like, I'm the only female in a room full of men. I've got to make sure. I was never told I should go to college. Like I was one of the first people in my family to go to college. This was not an expectation, right? I remember a professor bringing me into his office and telling me no girl could write this code. Who did I cheat from? And
Ada Lovelace.
Yeah, just incredible kinds of things. By the way, he never did apologize when he realized it was my code.
What's his name?
Yeah, I will not say he has since passed away. But it was an interest. So I leaned into it. For me, my early success in my career, becoming a lead developer, going out and doing different things, was because my imposter syndrome drove me harder. Like I had this if I didn't know it, I was going to stay up. I was going to learn it. I was going to do it. Nobody could tell me, right? Like, and in my head, that's what had contributed to my success. But what it also did was made me super critical of myself. I mean, highly, highly critical of myself. And as I got further in my career and I started mentoring more people and I started actually doing things, and somebody would do something to themselves, and I was like, don't you do that? Like, are you kidding? Like, you're fantastic. Why are you saying that? And she looked at me, she goes, because you do. And I was like, oh, son of a, like, dang it. And so I started to realize that, yes, maybe my imposter syndrome had served me to a certain point, but now it was holding me back. And I read this book by Adam Grant called Think Again, which is not the book you should read before you release your book, because it just basically destroys your confidence and all every capacity known to man. But I've read this book multiple times, and in it, he actually calls to the term confident humility. And I have made or at least hopefully intentionally trying to make a change, a pivot, a tweak towards this is I am confident that I will figure out what I need to do to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
But I am humble enough to know I do not know everything.
Right.
And it allows me, because I was always afraid of imposter syndrome. Like, well, if I let that go, I'm going to end up Dunning-Kruger and I'm going to walk around acting like I know everything and be arrogant. And that was like a fear that I had. And so this confident humility concept really allows me to role model in a way that still tries to challenge myself, still keeps me humble, but yet still actually acknowledges the reality that, look, I've been doing this for over 25 years. I can figure it out. And I do think that that's played into my resilience as I've done it, but I was doing it in unhealthy ways for a really long time.
And what kind of
maybe
example?
Still am in unhealthy ways. Let's get real.
Do you have an example of how that, like, unhealthy way, how that showed?
So unhealthy ways, thousands different ways. I would not be vulnerable. I would not actually ever say I needed help with things, because if I needed help, then it was, oh, the girl on the team needs help and like we're carrying her. And so I would not have, I would figure it out. And I'm like, and now I think how stupid, like on every level, because every time I've been at my best is when I'm collaborating, is when I'm playing off stuff. I can sit and talk on a microphone for days, but when I can play off of people and talk through, I'm always, thoughts are better, ideas are better, my humor's, everything is better when it comes to me. And yet I think about my early days and where I was just like, no, I didn't want to collaborate because I didn't want to show that vulnerability.
Well, I think yes, what you're saying is, as somebody who's worked on a screen remotely for the last number of years, I've had to work hard to figure out how to build relationships with like the type of people in this room, off camera and all that, and just teams I work with, because I get a lot of energy from being in person and just collaborating with people. And just last week, I told a group, the old phrase, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Right. And I do believe that, like, I'm the best person to do a lot of things quickly and check off my checklist on my smart pad here. But the really big important things, I'm going to have to collaborate with people because I just can't do it by myself. I think the biggest problem I have with fake it till you make it is most people stop at faking it. And if you fake it for a little while, it can become a habit. And you might say, well, this is good enough. Like, I'm fooling them. I'm fooling myself. I'm fooling them or whatever. And I've told people, I totally subscribe to fake it till you make it. But what are you going to do to make it? Like, what are you going to learn? You don't have to make it overnight, but how are you going to learn? Teach yourself so that you're not faking it 3 months from now or next sprint or next month or whatever. And I don't know if that's resilience, but I think one of my family members is famous for saying, if you want Jim to do something, tell him he can't do it. So I use that kind of toxic arrogance maybe to say, oh, you tell me I can't do that, I'm going to do it.
You cannot get me again a Red Bull.
Okay, hold on. But I think it's mostly manifested itself in positive ways. And at family functions, it was always good because if, like I would tell my uncle, like, I don't think you can make a half-court hook shot. And he'd be out there in the driveway, we'd have the ball and, he'd do it 50 times till he made it. See, I told you I could do it. But in the workplace, that toxicity can be a real bad thing. And it leads to a lot of evenings of, oh, I'm an asshole. I'm faking it. I'm an imposter, right? Like all that stuff. And, I do think that this idea, what did you call it? Confident humility?
I didn't call it that.
Adam Grant, who's a Buckeye, by the way, if anyone in the audience knows him, we'd love to have him on because as a Buckeye, would love to. But
he's a good dude.
Yeah, I love that. I love that book. But anyway, I think that's the what I see in maybe celebrities or people that have reached a certain time is it probably is very easy for George Clooney and Tom Hanks to be humble, right? Because they're successful, but they also still seem to be students of the craft. And that's why I really like certain celebrities, whether it's an athlete or whatever, because if you hear them talk, whether it's I'm a big Howard Stern fan, longtime Howard Stern fan. I'm not a daily listener anymore, but he pulls people out, pulls stories out of people, and he's pulling humility out. Like Paul McCartney talking about struggling to do something, or Bill Murray talking about like I think that is must see, must listen content.
But that's the interesting thing as well, because at a certain point, some people start to become really arrogant. The more either successful you get, the more known. When they become arrogant, they're not fun to work with anymore. And then it's really hard to build that resilience, because you already don't have any trust. But also, you like the demand for your craft is going to go down. Your specific personal craft is going to go down, because you're just treating people like an asshole.
And it seems like, as I listen to those people, the very time that they should be the most humble is when they're not. Like, Bill Murray talks about this thing early in his career when he didn't have all the success, didn't have all the skills, and he was tough to deal with. He wanted to quit. He wanted to do all this. And there's so many stories of this, right? Where when people are at the beginning of their career, before they've made it, before they've got this, long track record of public success, is sometimes when they're the most arrogant, the hardest to deal with and all that. And I think, and to hear a lot of them talk over the years, it's fear. It's not wanting to be found out that you're not good. It's feeling like an imposter. Like, imagine trying to break into Broadway or music or sports and being surrounded every day by people you put on a pedestal.
Oh, and it can be exhaustion. I always sound like an empathizer in a lot of cases, but I really do. And trust me, it is getting harder by the day in this world right now. But I do truly believe that generally even bad behavior is some kind of influenced by a system or by an environment or by, things that are going on. And I know I've encountered many different people along the ways that when I did dig in, it was like, well, no, someone told me I wasn't going to do the X. And so now I safeguard where I'm going to be. And I was like, so there's always these influences that are attributed, but sometimes it's just exhaustion, and frustration by different things, whether it's right or wrong based on where they're at in their career and their, expertise or experience. But it is seeing something and going, a jealousy or why not me, or like I could do that, and sometimes those doors don't always feel very open to a variety of people in different ways, and so I again, it goes back to compassion being a huge part of resilience, and probably one of the areas that's hardest for me right now is to have a lot of compassion, because I'm in the take your willful ignorance and shove it kind of stage it right now mentally. But it is something that I keep putting back forward in. It's like, what is the compassion? What's the environment? What's the situation that's influencing that bad behavior or that less than ideal approach to collaboration or engagement or just their identity?
Right.
And what is it filling for them that they need that identity? Like, I'll hear somebody who's like, well, I have X number of followers on LinkedIn. And when this person said to me, and I was like, how do you even know how many followers you have? I didn't even know that was a thing. But for them, that was basically their way of establishing their expertise or establishing themselves. And it was a metric they had decided had warrant value and were driven by it. Right. And so I try to get curious about what it is that's driving that for that individual. Instead of just being annoyed by it, but depends on how much I've been drinking, honestly.
Well, I have a question for you.
Honest answers here, only for you.
Mastering Agility only partners with organizations aligned with our values, and that's exactly why we're excited to work with our sponsor, ScrumMatch. ScrumMatch is a recruiting platform created for and run by true Scrum Masters and product owners. On ScrumMatch, true Scrum Masters and product owners get hired by companies serious about creating more value faster using professional Scrum and product ownership. Right now, they're hiring for a client with exciting Scrum Master vacancies in Paris and Lyon, France. In this role, you'll coach cross-functional teams to deliver cutting-edge digital products, leveraging Agile, data analytics, AI, and lean UX. Enjoy a hybrid work model, a competitive salary, and the opportunity to thrive in a collaborative, innovative environment. Are you interested? Sign up on Scrum Match and sprint toward your dream job on scrummatch.com.
I have a question for you, but what you just said, like 6 months ago, someone on LinkedIn said something that was just categorically wrong. Or there's no ifs, ands, or buts. It was just wrong, misinformation. And I fairly politely called it out in the comments. And they responded to me privately and said, basically, they said, Jim, take your opinion, shove it up your ass. I got over 50,000 impressions on that post. And I go, cool metric, but that just means you spread misinformation 50,000 times. Like, why are you proud of that?
Yeah.
That's what I hate about this whole content creator and this algorithm driven behavior, right?
Like, well, it encourages trolls.
Right.
But you realize we do that too with the podcast, right?
What?
Content creating.
No. Like, yeah. I mean, and it bothers me, but like, I would happily hear people talk and share real information, but to not care that you're putting out misinformation and measuring yourself on how many, like, let's say you did a podcast and only wrong answers, right? To black and white answers.
Keynote, only wrong statements.
Right.
That would be amazing.
And then you were proud of how many people listened to our that episode. That would be bad. Like if they didn't know they were only wrong answers, right?
Yeah. It's 50,000 laughs just because you're a dickhead. Your post is wrong. Look at this asshole. 50,000. Yeah, sure. It doesn't say shit.
The only way I sleep at night and not let those people live in my brain is I'm like, I think the world will see it. The world will find them out. Those 50,000 impressions, maybe 48,000 of them were people that knew this person was full of shit and they unfollowed them. I don't know. My question for you is, we were giving you shit last night that, you know, his ego needed to be a check bag at the airline, right? But I know him to be one of the most humble, self-critical people there is. So what does it look like in you, these things like that Tricia's talking about, imposter syndrome, resilient learning?
Well, my imposter syndrome kicks in all the time, and I actually discussed that with Trish a couple of weeks ago because, you know, tomorrow I'm doing the opening keynote, never done that before, definitely having that imposter syndrome. So I just reached out to Trish and I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Can you help me out?
Can you help me?
Yeah, just do you have any tips? Like, do you approach this differently? How do you do that? And learn from people who are actually doing that and that I look up to. That really does help me in that sense. And I don't think the imposter syndrome will ever go away. And neither do I hope so, because it does help me drive these kind of things and be creative. Because the other side is very true as well. The moment that you become complacent with the skills that you have and think that you're all it, you'll become that dickhead that we've been talking about this episode. And I don't want to be that person.
Yeah, I agree with you. I see imposter syndrome as most of the time a positive influence on me. But at dinner last night, we were talking to Evelyn, who I think we'll have on, and we were talking about another colleague, and we were talking about those type of people that either some people fill up your bucket and other people take ladles out of your bucket. Well, I had an old teammate, Summer Lawrence. I think she'll listen, and I confessed her. I love Summer, by the way.
She never. No. Are you going? Did you just name drop someone you're about to?
No. She never took things out of.
I was like, wow, we're going next level.
No. She never took things out of my bucket. But working with her and seeing all the things she was good at was very demoralizing at times. And I'm like, I am never going to be like that. I'm never going to hold a room like that. I'm never going to be so in control that she could deal with some of the difficult things and people and activities. And I told her about that. I'm like, working with you creates this feeling inside me. And she's like, oh my God. And then we had a long conversation about, you know, how she feels about certain things. And I did. And pretty quickly it turned into a very positive influence, right? Because we're the type of people who want to make each other better and want to sing each other's praises. But she never took things out of my bucket, but it did drive me to want to be better. And at times, you know, usually when I was alone, maybe with a brown liquid, would be like, I'm never going to be that good. So what the F's the point in trying anyway? But I didn't languish in that feeling.
Well, but that's actually one of the fears and the lies that that I highlight in this resilience element is but I'm not going to be as good as X, right? And I will have people actually highlight that to me as like, I could never do what you do up on stage. I could never, like, you're like, that's, and it's like, but why you're feeling that way about me is because I'm authentic on stage.
Yeah.
You have to be authentically you. And people, it will have the same feeling. Even if you tried to copy what I was doing, if you tried to copy Summer, I think it was, if you tried to copy Summer, it would go off the rails beyond imagine because it's not you.
My hair's not blue, first of all. So I don't know how good I'd look with blue hair.
The day's not over yet.
Yeah.
That's right. There's time.
I feel like there's a bet coming on right now.
No, what you're saying, and also with Adam Grant, but also on the quote here on Jim's Yeti Cup, or what is it? What do you call that? Anyway, the progress over perfection, that's something that Adam Grant describes very vividly as well. If you always strive for that perfection, you're never going to obtain it. Like if you continuously want to feel happy, you'll be busy with feeling happy. You will never feel happy because you don't know what happy feels like.
Well, and also perfection in what isn't a duplication of somebody else.
No.
Right? And so it is learning. I think that was one of the things I had to learn when I started mentoring and really leading people is like, how do I bring out their authentic strengths, their authentic elements, and so that they can really just own them? Because I think that's that confidence element, right? It's not just confidence in others, it's confidence in yourself, but you can only have that when it feels genuine to who you are and what you are and how you show up. And you know, we'll see people do that thing where it's like, you know, they'll hold up, I need to read every single word on this thing because I don't want to miss a word because somebody will think but the problem is I'm so disconnected that you could forget most of those words. And if you just felt like I was being real talking to you, you'll hear me way more than if I read a script.
Yeah.
That's why we have a free flow conversation in this podcast as well. Because when I just started, I had a list of preset questions. Like, I want to have this stuff. And while you're speaking as a guest, I'm already trying to find segues in your words to lead that into the next question. And that takes me out of the conversation. So now you're, again, the witness of this. Like, we have no preparation whatsoever.
Which I prefer. I freak some podcast people out when they're like, do you want the questions? I'm like, no. I was like, no, I don't want your questions up front. And he's like, well, how are you going to prepare? And I was like, oh, that's cute.
I'm not going to. You think I'm going to prepare? Even if you give them to me, I ain't going to read them.
We don't have to prepare. We're agile.
Well, but again, it takes me out of my headspace with things. And I make that sound like I clearly have a prepared keynote and things, but I do not have a script for that keynote. No two are exactly the same. It kind of what the energy I'm feeling in the room. I mean, the same points are there, but how I might say it varies every single time. What story I might share in that moment might vary depending on what pops into my head the most in that moment. But again, I'm very comfortable in that space. That is something I've had to work on too. That's a skill that I've developed with it to being able to just respond in the moment and not just shut down.
Well, he and I have talked a lot about being genuine, right? And I think the people I listen to and follow a lot are genuine. Like whether it's Conan O'Brien on his podcast or just different things, is they don't have to imitate or act or fake it, so they can be their genuine self, which makes it come across easy, and it probably lets them have much more real conversations. And a lot of times people will say, oh, I listen to your podcast. I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you talk for an hour. Like, isn't that so stressful? Or when I spoke at conferences, like, how did you do that? Like, I could never do that. Like you said, I said, well, first of all, it's just me. Like, because when I spoke at a conference for the first time, I was very prepared. I was practicing how I was going to say, I was doing all this stuff like in a mirror. And I'm like, oh my God, I was forgetting my own lines that I had written in a subject that I had mastered because I was focused too much on delivery. When I'm just myself, it comes across supernatural, very easy, but that means you get the good with the bad. It means occasionally you forget your train of thought.
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows and nobody cares.
See, these are the tips, Sander. If you forgot something, you don't say that out loud. You just think it in your head, but you don't say, oh, I forgot to say. Never say those words because nobody else knows. You just say it.
Right.
You just say it. And then they think
down my script.
Right. Like, but it's when it's like, oh, I forgot to mention. I'm like, no, just mention it. Don't say the lead in words because nobody else knows.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's part of building the resilience as well, being comfortable that you don't always know the the stuff, and that's okay, right? You're not always going to do it perfectly, and you're always going to be looking back like, I could have done this better. This could have been tweaked. Like next, I'm going to do this talk. I'm going to do this in a slightly different way, and that's always going to exist, and that's fine.
Nigel Baker, an Agilist, saw this early version of the keynote as I was starting to prepare and see if this would work or not. And in this, one of the ways that I've done this keynote about building resilience is, and how I've highlighted that I lie to myself all the time, is because I decided as I'm approaching 50, I should learn how to do a freestanding handstand, because
why not?
Why not? And considering I don't even know how to do a cartwheel, this was not something I was in the realm of my physical abilities, let alone mental abilities. And the earliest one, I was like, why would I pick something that I'm nervous about doing? My hands are shaking. You got to be on your hands. This is the dumbest thing I've ever done in my life. And Nigel was like, actually, Tricia, it'd be better if you did fall. And I was like, well, I can't force a fall. It's got to be authentic. But it has, even him saying that to me, because that was the panic. I was like, watch me like just totally bite it in front of everybody at the end. But him actually calling out, he's like, if you did bite it, it would actually make the point of the talk even stronger, because you would get up and you would do it again, which is what resilience is in the face of adversity, setbacks and unexpected, undesired results. You figure out your next step and you keep moving forward. And I'm like, well, now how do I fake it? Like, can I just but that will be when I injure myself. So I'm not doing that, people.
So do you want to check another box for the podcast?
Of course.
Cool. And do a handstand.
Right now?
Yeah.
I have no warm up with anything like with stuff, but I got to do that on stage too. At the very end, I will do a handstand.
Sweet, because we're rounding up.
Oh, we're done anyways?
Almost.
Okay.
Yes.
I think there could be a super keynote here, because his is 10 lies organizations. You could do 10 lies you tell yourself and like bring those together. What a
They
marriage.
segue into each other. Yes.
Yeah,
100%.
look at that.
We end up with the chat GPT question of the day. And this is, what's the most unconventional product decisions you've made, and what was the outcome?
Most unconventional product decisions I made. Do you want them very specifically product or internal product company wise?
Yes.
So I can go wherever I want with this answer. See, I always have a hard time with this question, because I do not deserve the credit for this. Others do. And so I'm going to preface and do the disclaimer up front with that, is I think one of the coolest things that a senior leadership team decided to do was, speaking to the learning, which is probably why it popped in my head, is instead of doing like the hackathon thing, they decided to do every Friday was Innovation Friday. And so it was like, let's make the company better by Monday. And so that allowed everybody across different teams, no matter where people were at. And again, Fridays, so many people take off, but they could fix like low hanging fruit issues. They could go across the organization and work together. And just the creativity that they came up with in terms of, here was the problem of feeling like we are never able to do certain things that were quick wins or things, but we also can't collaborate. The timing's always a challenge. To come up with that solution, what was fascinating to me was, in addition, was how much more prioritized and focused they were Monday through Thursday as a result of it as well, right? Like when they could be like, okay, fine, we'll get through our backlogs. We'll really focus in on there because we know we have this Friday coming up with it. And so I think it's still to this day one of the coolest product kind of approaches to solving problems with organizational product, but of approaching things in a creative, collaborative way that I'm still impressed by the results of it.
Cool. Jim, any additions from your side?
I've seen the same type of thing work. One leader was like, yeah, but what about all the people who are going to take that Friday and they're just going to go to the bar under the guise of, learning or whatever? And I go, right. But remember last week we heard that one team that loved what they did Friday afternoon so much, they worked on it all weekend and presented a solution. What percentage of the teams that are going to work all weekend because they're really engaged and bring you a big full package solution on Monday do you need to make up for the percentage of people that are always going to just screw off and go to the bar? And he's like, oh yeah, good point. Like, not everything is going to be equal, but if you get a few of those, it's going to make up for a lot. So no, I think it's a cool story.
Yeah, it's like investors. They invest in a million different things, but you only have to hit that one sweet spot to, compensate.
Ooh, that's an interesting idea. Maybe for another chat is like the VC approach to learning, right? Like, I hear and see a lot of OKRs that are like, everyone's going to spend 2% of their time. Well, what if somebody spends 90% of their time? Or what if you give everybody 2% and some people, like 2 people really solve the next big problem, but 900 don't? Like, that's the VC approach. Okay, that's fine. But if you do that over and over again, your company's still going to get way better faster.
Exactly.
Yeah. Nice. Cool.
All
Thanks for being on again, Tricia.
Exactly.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're always welcome.
In person.
For that handstand.
Oh, you want the hand?
Oh my Lord. This is all him. I'm not. Oh my. Hey, maybe this is your viral moment. Like, you are a trooper. You win like the Trooper of the Year award. I'm going to stay on mic so that I can tell the audience what they're seeing here.
What is happening?
Yeah, so Tricia has amazing heels on. She's in a very monochromatic visage. First, I'm mastering agility, everyone.
There she goes.
Beautiful yoga pose so far.
This is just a warm up for the keynote. There we go.
Oh, beautiful. Beautiful. And she did it, folks, with a twirl at the spin at the end. Extremely graceful.
Thank you so much for taking up on that challenge. All right.
Love it.
Thank you, Trish.
That is all for today. Thank you for listening. If you liked this episode, let us know by hitting that like button. Share it with friends and colleagues, sharing a message on LinkedIn, joining our warm and welcoming Discord community, or attend recordings as a virtual audience. You can find all the relevant links in the show notes. We hope you'll tune back in for the next episode of the Mastering Agility podcast.